what we find is that people are attracted to Warby Parker based on the opportunity to build a brand that means something, that has values that are aligned with theirs. And so when we survey our employees, our social mission is always the number one or number two factor that they cite around why they love working for Warby Parker.
My guest today is Dave Gilboa. He is the co-founder and also the co-CEO of Warby Parker, an online retailer of glasses, sunglasses, and contact lenses, which was founded in 2010. Today, Warby Parker is a publicly traded company. They have a market cap of almost $2 billion and over 3,000 employees. In today's discussion, we are going to look at the importance of values and vision in growing and running a business, how to turn ideas into products or services, and how Dave sets personal and professional goals. If you're a subscriber to Leading the Future of Work Plus, you'll also get access to a bonus episode where Dave talks about how to create trust, the importance of vulnerability, and the one hack he uses to stimulate creative ideas. Subscribers get access to ad-free listening, early access to new episodes, and a new weekly bonus episode with one of my amazing guests. I hope you decide to subscribe and support the show. And now, let's get into the episode. Dave, thank you for joining me to be a guest on Leading the Future of Work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
For people not familiar with Warby Parker, why don't we start with just a little bit of background information about the company?
Sure. So Warby Parker is a direct-to-consumer brand. We launched in 2010. It was me and my three co-founders. We were classmates in business school. I just lost a expensive pair of glasses and couldn't understand why they're so expensive. And realized that there was no good reason. So we bootstrapped the business, launched out of our apartments, really with the intention of bringing more transparency to a large category, offering products for a reasonable price with a great experience, build a brand that customers love, and create a brand that was aligned with our values. And so for every pair of glasses we sell, we distribute a pair to someone in need. And now we're about 12 and a half years into our journey, have about 3,000 employees, a couple hundred stores. In addition to glasses, sell contacts, have a couple hundred eye doctors on the team, offer eye exams, telemedicine. And so have really kind of grown in scope and scale over the last 12 plus years.
Yeah, wow, 3,000 employees. You guys are quite a quite a large size company now from the tiny days when you started it in college with some of your friends. I'm really curious about the role that your values and vision played in growing the business. Can you talk a little bit about, did you guys set that up at the very beginning as far as what the values were going to be for the company and the vision that you had for the business, or is this something that you tried to figure out as you went along?
Yeah, we as founders weren't really intending to start a business. We really started to solve our own problems. So we were all frustrated consumers, couldn't understand why glasses were so expensive, couldn't understand why no one was selling them online. So when we kind of dove into the industry and realized that we thought we could operate a business differently than kind of the rest of the category had been operating. That got us excited, but we also recognized that if we were going to be spending all of our time on this new venture, that we needed more than just kind of an interesting business idea. We wanted to create an organization that we felt was really having positive impact on the world.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so we spent as much time kind of talking about our social mission and the opportunity to do good as we did about kind of how to figure out how to design our first collection of glasses or build a website. And that's really kind of when we came up with our ethos around the business, where we were really excited by the opportunity to create a for-profit business that does good in the world, and thought that was kind of an interesting platform where we could attract the best and the brightest. We could attract capital. We could invest for scale, but build in a model where, as the business got bigger, our positive impact would multiply as well.
Do you want to learn how to create an amazing corporate culture while avoiding the pitfalls that make for a toxic one? If so, I created a brand new 8-part training video series just for you. In total, it's around 30 minutes in length, and you can get it right now by going to helpmyculture.com. Go there right now before this training series disappears forever. Again, that is helpmyculture.com, and get access to this free 8-part training series on how to create an amazing corporate culture. So it sounds like everything goes back to kind of that core values of doing good. But a lot of organizations have similar values, right? Do good, have fun, this and that. But a lot of those organizations also don't succeed. So how do you go from just having the values be words or a phrase to actually translating it into how the business operates, how employees show up to work each day, how leaders lead? How do you connect the words to the actions and the behaviors?
So we have our set of core values that kind of we came up with when we were about the team was about 20 people, and we realized that we'd been hiring people with a certain quality, with certain qualities that kind of reminded them of the founding group, but we hadn't gone through the process of articulating what those core values were.
Okay.
And so we kind of involved everyone in the company at the time, asked them kind of what are the values that are most important to them, with the people that they want to surround themselves with, just in life, not necessarily in a business context. And we had a couple hundred different values that were submitted, and we led a number of small group discussions to talk through kind of which of those values were the same, which ones were different, which ones we thought were critically important to the organization that we were building, and which ones were more nice to have. And then Neil, my co-founder and co-CEO, and I kind of got in a room, took all that feedback, wordsmithed, and kind of came up with our set of core values. And since then, we really used that list as the foundation for our kind of interview process. We're very open around these values, and we find that lots of people self-select when they apply to work for Warby, and we really try to ensure that there's enough, as much alignment as possible between people's individual values and the company's values. But we are not, and one of those values is do good, but we're also
what are some of the other ones?
unapologetically a for-profit business.
Yeah, what are some of the other values out of curiosity?
One is inject fun and quirkiness into everything we do.
Okay.
We recognize that we're to have the impact that we think is possible, it's going to require us to work really hard over a very long period of time. And we want to make sure that the journey is fun along the way, that we're having fun with one another as a team, that we're having fun with our customers and partners, and just making not taking our work seriously, but not ourselves too seriously. Another one is treat others as they want to be treated. Another is pursue new and creative ideas. Others presume positive intent.
Okay. Hey, I like these.
We have some of these values maybe similar to other organizations. I think kind of the amalgamation of them is unique to us. And while we are very focused on the impact that we think is possible for all of our stakeholders, we're also unapologetically a for-profit business.
Yeah.
And we make sure that people understand that the way that we can deliver the most impact is by building the best for-profit business. And if we're able to scale, if we're able to sell more glasses, if we're able to drive our revenue, drive our EBITDA, that creates more dollars that we can invest in our do-good efforts, and expect that we will be able to have a lot of direct positive impact ourselves, But we also hope to inspire a lot of other entrepreneurs, a lot of other companies, a lot of other
Yeah.
founders to see that, hey, you can build this awesome business that doesn't have to make any, or customers don't have to make any sacrifices, that investors don't have to make any sacrifices,
Yeah.
that it's just a great standalone business, but it also creates all this positive impact
You,
because of the social mission that's embedded in
you
the business.
you make an interesting point, right? And I like that one of your values is working hard. And without naming company names, I think everybody knows who I'm talking about. But there have been some companies in the news lately that are getting criticized for making their employees work too hard. And I'm always really curious to hear different perspectives from CEOs on that, because you turn to like social platforms and everybody says, "Oh no, shame on you, shame on you." And you talk to CEOs at companies, and a lot of them have a very different tune, and they say, these employees are genuinely excited about the work that they're doing. They want to work hard. They are excited to be a part of something like this. So how do you balance that? Because there's a big debate around like working hard, work-life balance. How do you, as a co-CEO of an organization, think about working hard and creating that balance and how hard you can push people?
Yeah, for us, it comes back to really our long-term goals, where we know that you can pull an all-nighter one night, maybe two nights in a row, but you can't do that 100 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Just not humanly possible. And for us, we want to make sure that we're kind of capitalizing on opportunities in front of us, that we're moving really quickly, but that we're investing for the long term. And kind of the phrase that we use most often when we talk about kind of our growth path is sustainable growth, where we want to make sure that we're set up to grow quickly for not only this year, but the next several years and decades. And our ultimate goal is for Warby Parker to be one of the most impactful companies and brands in the world 100 years from now. And that means that everything we do today is still kind of building the foundation
Yeah.
for our brand and that longer term opportunity. And so we do want to make sure that we're moving really quickly. We're out competing others, that we're setting ourselves up for those future opportunities. But we should be mindful around when we're sprinting and when sprints are kind of absolutely critical, and when it makes sense to kind of give people some time to breathe. And I think the last couple of years have been a very strange time in the world for everyone, and kind of a strange time for most businesses. And we went from having a very much 5-day a week in office culture where people worked hard, but when they kind of left the office, most people kind of also left their work behind, to then in early 2020, all of us going remote and people not having anything else to do. And so we pretty quickly it was kind of all hands on deck, and it didn't matter what day of the week, what time of day or night, you knew someone was available. And that created we have really driven people, wanted to make sure that we were going to kind of get through this really challenging time in the world and in our business. And so we had people kind of basically working 24/7. And then we had to kind of step in and kind of ask people to take breaks. And even if they had nothing else to do, like go take a walk, turn off your computer for a few hours, or kind of take a couple days off and just relax. And now we're back to kind of more of a normal cadence, where we certainly want people to work hard, but we want to do so in response to kind of particular opportunities, or make sure that that work is aligned with our overall goals and our overall kind of roadmap for what needs to get done.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And I like the approach of sprints, because I'm also of the belief that, occasional all-nighters and things like that, if employees are behind the company, sometimes I run a small business. I only have 12 people that I work with, but sometimes I get very excited about the work that I'm doing, and my wife has to like pull me away from the computer, and it's like, it's enough. Um, and I think a lot of employees sometimes get very excited about challenging work and projects and making an impact. And so if they are willing and they want to participate and they enjoy what they're doing, the occasional sprints like that are not harmful. In fact, sometimes they can be good. A lot of companies even host hackathons where they get people together for a couple of nights, they order food and pizzas, and everyone just kind of hangs out at the office for a few days and tries to solve really complex problems. So I like that you kind of frame it in terms of sprints and then kind of a regular cadence. Shifting gears a little bit, I'm curious to hear your perspective on what comes first, employees or customers?
Yeah, I'd say we view that as kind of a false choice, where
Okay.
our not to kind of dodge the question, but we've always believed in a very stakeholder centric view, where for our business, obviously customers have to have to be served well. That's the only way that we're going to stay in business, and so we're absolutely customer obsessed. Everyone in the company can rattle off what our net promoter score has been for the last several years, and we really look to make sure that we're delighting every single customer. And so that's kind of table stakes. But in order to get there, we need to attract and retain the most talented people in the world, and create a culture and an organization that is going to enable people to bring their whole selves to work and be excited by the work and the growth path, and be excited to serve those customers and develop innovative features. And then the way that we attract those people and make sure that they are as excited and motivated as possible is by also having a social mission embedded into the business, and making sure that the other stakeholders that we're serving, like the environment and the communities in which we operate, are also being served. And so the fact that our employees can go on volunteer days to schools where in low income areas where we're bringing in eye doctors, offering free eye exams, providing free glasses to students in need. Those types of activities are hugely motivating and enable us to then attract some of the most passionate, curious, driven people in the world to build that culture and then serve those customers. And so, not
Both come first. People first.
yes, exactly.
Okay, I like that approach. So you mentioned kind of attracting and retaining talent and what people are looking for. Are you finding that when you're hiring people, because obviously people still care about a paycheck, they still care about benefits and stuff like that. Are you also finding that people very much care about the social cause and the mission and the impact that you guys are having in your communities? And when you are having those conversations, I mean, what would you say the balance is? Is it like, I don't know, 80% about pay and benefits and 20% about social mission? Or like, how impactful is that social component really to employees deciding on if they want to work with you?
Yeah, I'd say every single person that works at Warby Parker could be earning more somewhere else. Now we pay market rates, and we believe that there's lots of upside in our equity, and certainly don't want people to feel like they're making financial sacrifices. But if to come to work for us, but if their sole goal is to come home with the biggest paycheck, there's going to be other places that are right for them. And what we find is that people are attracted to Warby Parker based on the opportunity to build a brand that means something, that has values that are aligned with theirs. And so our social mission, when we survey our employees, our social mission is always the number one or number two factor that they cite around why they love working for Warby Parker. And when we in our surveys, 90+% of our employee base say they're proud to work for Warby Parker, and that is in large part based on the social mission and the broader impact that they know their work is having, whether they're working on our accounting team or supply chain, whether they're designing glasses, or if they're more directly involved in kind of those nonprofit efforts, being part of an organization that means something, I think has been a huge competitive advantage in our ability to attract and retain talent.
Obviously, there's a lot of talk of uncertainty for next year. You hear a lot of discussions in the economy, recession, inflation. There's just a lot of madness going on out there. As a CEO, obviously you're running a pretty good sized company, 3,000 employees, and you're trying to think about and plan for the future, as are so many other business leaders out there. How do you think about it and plan, right? Because obviously you probably read the news and see the same headlines that everybody else does. The only difference is that you are responsible for 3,000 people. So what do you do? How do you think about the future, plan for the future, think about uncertainty? And do you have any advice for other leaders out there who are also, seeing and reading the same news and they're trying to figure out, what do we do for 2023?
Yeah. So we launched our business in 2010, and we had a decade of pretty steady and predictable kind of customer demand. And then early in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we got punched in the face along with everyone else, and been kind of repeatedly punched in the face over the last 2.5 years. And kind of all those plans that we had that were so predictable and kind of have been thrown out the window. And so what we found now is that there remains a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of macro factors that are completely out of our control. And so we just need to focus on what is in our control, namely kind of serving customers, delighting those customers, responding to the external signals that we're seeing, and being as nimble and flexible as possible. And so while we used to have very rigorous kind of 18-month planning cycles, now we just recognize that our ability to predict what the world is going to look like 18 months from now, or even 6 or 9 months from now, has been kind of materially degraded. And so now we just have kind of much more flexibility, where we are, we look at certain signals that are probably the most important indicators for our category.
Okay.
And so, for us, it's the number of people that are getting eye exams. It's retail traffic into stores or the shopping centers where our stores are, where we can kind of use those as some kind of broad signals, whether the consumer environment is improving, is it steady, or is it declining, and then we can make adjustments accordingly. But in general, we've just kind of gone to much faster iteration and more flexibility and agility in how we operate. And previously we would have looked at kind of a big growth plan for the following 12 to 18 months and build our expense base and hire a lot of people ahead of that growth materializing, because we were kind of so confident in seeing those plans. And now really all the focus is on flexibility and agility and not investing in areas until kind of we see that demand materialize.
So 18-month planning cycles, what would you say they're cut down to now? Are you looking like 3 months, a couple of months, or what did it shrink to?
Yeah, so in most part for our business, it's 3 months.
Wow. It's funny because I remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, right? Companies used to have 5-year plans, 6-year plans. Would you say that all that has gone out the window and it's just completely useless to do any of that stuff anymore?
We still have longer term plans, but have kind of a set of scenarios where there's just much more variance in the outcomes of kind of what our business might look like 5 years down the road.
Okay.
Than if you had asked us to kind of project that set of outcomes in 2019.
So you mentioned scenarios, which I also find really interesting. when you guys are thinking about the future in your planning cycles, are you imagining and coming up with different scenarios, like different possibilities that might happen in the future? And I mean, are you able to share maybe one or two of them, or how you even come together to think about those scenarios? Because I think one of the things a lot of leaders struggle with is they're very linear in their thinking, and they just pick one path and they assume that that's the only path that exists. So I really like your approach of thinking of different scenarios or possibilities that might come up. So if you have any guidance on how to do that and what some of those scenarios for you guys are, I think people would find that very interesting.
Yeah, as much as possible, we kind of we like to you can have a model spit out whatever you want, and what we try to focus on is getting precise around the inputs into that model, and what's going to drive what's going to drive the outputs. And so for our business, the kind of the main factors that we have to play with on the demand side is really the number of people that are getting eye exams, and then how quickly some of the newer parts of our business might scale. So
Okay.
for our first 10 years in business, we were really primarily a glasses company. And now we've added contact lenses, eye exams. They're small, but rapidly growing parts of our business. And so there's much more, we have much less history there. There's much more kind of variance in terms of how quickly those parts of our business could scale. And so really try to isolate what are the kind of key inputs that are going to, if you had to isolate three variables that are going to be the kind of core drivers of growth over the next few years. What are those variables, and what's sort of the range of inputs? And then kind of lay out the bookends. And no one has a crystal ball, but just as we get more data and kind of as we move, every week and every month, as we get more data, we can pressure test and validate kind of where in that range we're trending towards.
How much of thinking about the future is art versus science? In other words, how much of it is your intuition or gut feeling versus actual data and analysis that you're looking at? Because, we've all been in those situations where our gut has been wrong, and we've also been in situations where we have a lot of the data and we think we know what we should be doing based on what the data says, and we do it and we ended up making a mistake. So obviously, like you said, there's no crystal ball, but how do you balance as a leader your intuition versus the data that you're actually looking at?
Yeah, we like to be data informed, but not necessarily data driven. So we don't. I think at kind of various stops in my career have seen people take the output from Excel model as kind of something that has been printed on tablets from up high. And
has that ever happened to you, where you were looking at data and made a decision based on data and it was just wrong?
Yeah.
You have a story
Definitely
behind that one?
Yeah, so one of the great parts about building primarily an e-commerce business is that you can A/B test everything.
Yep.
And you can look at higher conversion, the percentage of people that click on one design versus another. And what we found is that sometimes those A/B tests lead to a higher click-through rate. But those customers that we're attracting through that one test end up being much less valuable customers to us in the long run. And so, some of the data can be obscured if you're looking at different time periods. So it really comes down to being clear around your goals and kind of setting up any of these tests. And so I think that's just one example of kind of where if someone wanted to set up a very objective test, they can say, hey, look, this test is clearly better, but it may lead to kind of longer term negative repercussions.
Okay. So going back to the original question of balancing the data with the the intuition, kind of the decision making on your end. What's that balance, and how do you strike it?
Um, yeah, I think the it has to be a combination of art and science, and for us, we're building a business where we have lots of data, and we want to use that to inform our decision making. But ultimately, we're trying to do things that no one's done before. We're building a brand. We're creating products where our customers want us to have a point of view. They don't want us to just look at kind of what is the average, best-selling pair of glasses and create something that kind of looks like everything else. They want us to take some risk. They want us to innovate, and that requires gut. That requires intuition, in addition to kind of looking at data output. And so there's always a combination. I'd say the real value that we have created, and I think any kind of business or organization, comes primarily from gut and intuition, as opposed to formulas in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. How much of data is used inward? So as far as hiring people, knowing when to promote them, do you have the same data lens facing inward as you do outward when you're kind of A/B testing and thinking about customer interactions on websites?
We do try to be as objective as possible in terms of kind of performance ratings, and make it clear what criteria are used to evaluate performance and promotions. There's always subjectivity that kind of goes into those ratings, and so it's a pretty similar, where there's kind of a mix of art and science, and ultimately, when there are people decisions, we try to remove as much bias as possible, and create objectivity. But I'm not sure it's possible to ever kind of boil human interactions down to to ones and zeros.
Yeah, no, it's never easy. How much of business success do you think is attributed to luck versus hard work? And I hear different perspectives from different CEOs that I've talked to on this. But from your perspective, how much is luck versus how much is, we did everything that we needed to do, we worked hard, and that's why we're successful?
So I think the vast majority is hard work, but there's no question that every successful business, every successful founder, entrepreneur, every successful organization has been the recipient of lots of good luck.
Yeah.
And Warby Parker is no different from that. I think the best organizations work really hard to put themselves in a position to be recipients of good luck, and then when that good luck comes their way, they work really hard to capitalize and maximize the benefit of that good luck, and that's certainly been the case with us. For me, it was a kind of a lucky accident that I lost my only pair of glasses, and I happened to do that while I was on a backpacking trip right before I was going to business school. And then it was lucky that I immediately met 3 classmates who were also frustrated eyeglass consumers, and none of us could figure out why glasses were so expensive. And we had 2 years where we were full-time students and didn't have to quit our jobs to kind of pursue this opportunity. And we had some life savings that we could invest to start this business. And then once we launched, there have been countless instances where we've gotten very lucky, and I think that that we've done a good job at kind of capitalizing on that good fortune, and so I think there are a lot of other scenarios and probably other people and organizations that may have kind of that good luck could have come their way,
Yep.
and they wouldn't have taken advantage of it as much. And so, still believe that kind of the vast majority of the impact comes from determined hard work.
Yep. Yep.
But certainly haven't created all of our own success.
Okay, that makes sense. Remember to go to helpmyculture.com if you want to get access to my brand new 8-part completely free training series on how to create an amazing corporate culture while avoiding the pitfalls that make for a toxic one. Not only will you hear from me, but you will hear from best-selling authors including Daniel Coyle, who wrote The Culture Code, and Aaron Meyer, the best-selling author of The Culture Map and No Rules Rules. You will also hear from Mark Randolph, the first CEO of Netflix, and Jim Heppelman, the CEO of PTC. Again, you can get access to all of this completely free by going to helpmyculture.com. I hope you find the video training series useful. How do you turn an idea into something? Because I think one of the things that a lot of leaders inside of organizations are trying to figure out, and I don't know if you guys have a specific process around this, but obviously a lot of people have ideas for a product, for a service, for something they want to do, something they want to try. And as a leader, it's obviously your job to try to vet those ideas and see which ones you can implement and which ones are either not good ideas or ideas that you need to wait on. How do you think about that innovation and ideation process? Do you guys have a framework that you follow? And what would be your advice to any leaders out there when people come to them with ideas on how to decide what to go with and what to not go with?
I think for us, it always comes down to, is a new idea, is it aligned with our company mission, our vision, core values, our strategic objectives, so that, even if someone comes up with a great idea, it may not make sense for Warby Parker to pursue it. It may not make sense for us to tackle that now. So, always want to be very clear in our the specific and measurable goals that we have as an organization, and then it can become generally an easy conversation around does this new idea, does this new widget or this new store or expansion into the UK or whatever the idea might be, does that help us accelerate our objectives on the roadmap? And so I think probably the most important aspect that enables a clear process is to be very clear around goals for the organization. And then, when there are ideas that seem interesting, that do fit that framework, then we often ask, how can we break this down into the smallest piece possible, especially if it's not something that we've ever done as an organization. We like to use the analogy that if you feel like you have to jump off a cliff to kind of try something for the first time, you probably have kind of laid out the problem in the wrong way, and you should take a step back, see, is there kind of a path, is there a ladder that we can take a couple rungs down, get some more information so that we don't have to just flip something on and hope that it works. What are the things that we can do to validate or test the assumptions that go in? Can we pilot this in one of our stores? Can we pilot this through an A/B test? Can we survey people? Can we learn from other organizations? How do we kind of de-risk this idea before we kind of launch a lot of resources behind it and just hope that it works?
Do you set personal goals for yourself as well, in addition to the goals for the business?
I do. I think those range from things like learning new skills like kite surfing, or allocating certain parts of my schedule to activities, whether it's spending time with my wife or family or or exercising or learning things. So try to ensure that I kind of have the right balance from a personal standpoint, and then as it relates to kind of company, I feel kind of responsible for everything we sign up for as a business, and so any goal that we have at the company level, I also kind of feel is a personal goal. But then in addition to that, from a career standpoint, also think about where there are opportunities where I can ensure that I'm becoming a more effective leader. That as the my role transitions from working out of an apartment with a handful of people to now running a public company with thousands of employees in a variety of disciplines, some people that are working thousands of miles away.
Yep.
How can I continue to evolve and become more effective at leading this organization?
What do you do to keep yourself accountable for those goals? Because anybody can set a goal, right? But it's another thing to actually say, I'm going to stick to it. Like, do you have an accountability buddy at work? Do you do check-ins? How do you make sure that the goals that you set out personally for yourself are actually met?
Yeah, I think probably the most important person, and we have somewhat of a unique structure or unusual structure at Warby, in that we have co-CEOs.
Yep.
And so Neil, one of my co-founders, and I have been running the company as co-CEOs for the last 12 plus years. And while it's some of an abnormal structure, I think it does come with a lot of benefits, in that there is always someone that can provide support and provide feedback in a very objective way, in ways that our board and our executives and members of the team probably wouldn't feel comfortable or equipped. And so that's something that kind of Neil and I have frequent check-ins. We talk 50 times a day, but really try to allocate some time around how we can help each other level up and ensure that we're kind of creating growth opportunities for one another.
Thanks again for tuning into today's conversation with Dave Gilboa, the co-founder and co-CEO of Warby Parker. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I enjoyed interviewing Dave. Remember that if you subscribe to Leading the Future of Work Plus, you will get access to ad-free listening, early access to new episodes, and you will also get a bonus episode each week from one of my amazing guests, including the one with Dave, where he talks about how to create trust inside of an organization, the importance of vulnerability, and he also shares the one hack he uses to stimulate creative ideas. I hope you decide to subscribe to Leading the Future of Work Plus. I'll see you next time.